9. I guess you could just like you could just search them up. Usually if you do search up like PSAT 9 we study resources, you should get some. I mean, so I mean you could use these slides as well, although these questions and like I guess topics would be a bit more advanced than what would be on the PSAT 9. So yeah, I mean you should probably just go search up for study resources and you should be able to find a bunch of them. 1 second, I will get the slides. I will get this link to the slides for you guys. This is the slides link for today's class. And yeah, I guess we can get started today. How was everyone? Just like put in reaction, I guess. All right, so today we'll be doing history passages as well as just like general questions on the SAT grammar section. So let's just start it. So for the SAT history passage, there's usually only one history passage in the reading, although it can be a paired passage, which means that there's like 2 passages in the form instead of just one, where there's usually a contrasting, I guess, there's usually like a contrasting viewpoint between the 2 authors of each of the passages. And generally this passage is like a primary source document, or as I said before, 2 primary source documents dating from like the 18th to 20th centuries, which is like 1700s to the end of the 1900s, and usually take the form of like speeches, letters, declarations, or editorials. And or the history passage could be an excerpt from like a founding document, such as the Federalist Papers, which the U.S. uses for which people in the U.S. passed a couple centuries ago. So some tips to read. I meant to write history passage there, not literature. Use what you do know. Like usually I say just don't bring in whatever you know outside of the SAT into what is what like for reading passages. However, for history passages, it is better to bring in what you know outside of history, outside of the SAT, because like the possible anchors in the text could be like the gist of the argument, a clear topic sentence, or a strongly negative. Oh, I said the wrong thing. So yeah, as I was saying before, you could bring in outside knowledge that you know, because like it helps you, I guess, orient yourself in what the passage is talking about. Say the passage about the Declaration of Independence is like an excerpt from it. You can tell like what it's referring to if you use outside knowledge. So for my first tip is use what you do know, anchors, to figure out what you don't. So possible anchors could be like the gist of the argument, a clear topic sentence, a strongly negative tone, or like a strongly positive tone, the historical context, or like the ending paragraph. And don't try to like waste time to unpack every single type of every single part of the passage. If you're struggling and you have to like reread parts of the passage over and over again because you don't understand it, don't just like skip it. This leads to my second, I guess, tip. Avoid rereading. This is a time test, and like if you do find yourself reading and rereading to like align to break down every single detail like you would in like an actual, I guess, like an English class, then you will run out of time, or you'll force yourself to like rush through a couple questions, which is never good. You don't need like a perfect understanding of the passage to answer the questions. As I said, whenever I do a passage, I take the passage, take a general understanding of it, and just write it down on the side. I don't need to perfectly understand exactly what it's talking about. And usually I don't. I just take the general theme of it. Often the questions and the answers phrasing can actually help you better understand the passage as you go. So another, I guess, tip I would say is read the opening blurb prior to starting the passage. This like blurb contains important historical context and that like frames the passages and like gives you, I guess, context to what the passage is about. I'm gonna put the link to the slides for people who asked. That is the link to today's slides. some more tips. Use the main or central stance to eliminate wrong answers. So if you know, for example, say Mary Wollstonecraft wants like women to be seen as equal to men and to have the same rights as men do, you can eliminate any answers that counter this idea. So say often you can use an answer from one question to help you answer another question, but make sure you're consistent. Don't say, oh, at one point she said this, but the next point she said the exact opposite of it. Or if a question asks, what does Mary Wollstonecraft support? Don't answer like she supports women in one question, and another question which asks like a similar thing. Don't say that, oh, she doesn't want women to be seen as equal to men. A fifth tip would be match the tone of the passage and the tone of the answer choices. So let like the author's attitude within the passage assist you. For example, if like an author is optimistic or like happy about a situation, eliminate like all negative answer choices that counter this positive tone, which I guess is pretty obvious to tell when an answer is negative versus when it's positive. And for paired passages, use one author's stance to understand the other's stance. If it's a paired section with two history passages, more than likely the authors are in disagreement, as I said in the beginning. When you're given paired passages, you have an author contradicting the other author, and it's like a compare and contrast situation. And if you understand like the gist of one author's argument, then it's reasonable to assume that the authors on the other side of the argument. And if a note that if like the authors largely disagree, there's usually a question that asks, what do they agree on? So any questions with what I just said before we move on to, I guess, general questions in the writing section? Just raise your hand or put a question in the chat. No? All right. So some general questions found in the SAT writing section. You have command of evidence, which is basically what a reading passage usually asks you to do. It asks you what is the general theme of the passage and a way to improve the way the passage presents information or like tells what it means. You might need to add a supporting detail, introductory sentence, or a conclusion to make the passage more impactful. Another type of question is words in context. Words in context are usually more detail oriented than command of evidence questions. And they basically tell you to replace a word that doesn't make sense or choose one that like is better in that context. Expression of ideas. So expression of ideas questions ask you to think about how ideas are expressed. And you might need to rearrange the order of sentences to improve flow or strengthen an argument. You might also just have to delete a sentence entirely if it just doesn't make sense in that context. So, and then I guess like a fourth type of question would be standard English conventions. And these are the most, I guess, populous of the questions. And usually around 50 of the questions are just standard English conventions. And these questions are usually questions about like grammar and punctuation rules. I guess a final type of questions that you might see is data interpretation. And this is what when a writing passage is like accompanied by a graph or like a chart that describes data that was like said in the passage itself. And but like it could be described incorrectly, and you're supposed to revise whatever incorrect representation of the data is said in the passage based on whatever the graph says. All right, any questions about, well, I guess questions on the SAT writing section? If not, we'll get to actual practice problems then. So we'll do our first one. I will give you guys the link to this as well. And I'll give you guys a good 5, maybe 10 minutes I'll give you guys 5 minutes to read this passage and then I'll do it myself. And if you guys do finish earlier, just raise your hand. And if enough people finished fast, I guess I'll just start it then. Again, if you guys do finish, just raise your hand so I know that people finished. And if enough people finished, I'll just start reading the passage with you guys. Again, if you guys finish, just raise your hand so I know when people are done and I can start doing the passage with you guys. All right, I'll wait a little bit more for anyone else who's reading it still. I'll give you guys another 3 minutes just to finish up. And again, just raise your hands after you guys finish reading the passage. All right, we'll start in a minute. You guys could put your hands down now. We'll start in a minute. All right, we'll start now. Could the people who have their hands up put down their hands so that the people who have questions can, I guess, put their hand up so I can see it. All right. So first thing we do, we look at the, I guess, the details of like the excerpt itself. So in 1862, Ralph Waldo Emerson delivered the excerpt below as part of a lecture called American Civilization at the Smithsonian Institution at Washington, D.C. So first thing we can say, 1862, so that's a while ago. It's at a Smithsonian institution, so I guess the people who were at it are usually going to be a bit more knowledgeable of what he's talking about. And yeah, so at this moment in America, the aspects of political society absorb attention in every house, from Canada to the Gulf. The children ask the serious father, "What is the news of the war today? And when will there be better times?" The boys have no new clothes, no gifts, no journeys. The girls must go without new bonnets. Girls and boys find their education this year less liberal and complete. All the little hopes that heretofore made the year pleasant are deferred. The state of the country fills us with anxiety and stern duties. We have attempted to hold together the two states of civilization: a higher state where labor and the tenure of land and the right of suffrage are democratical, and the lower state in which the old military tenure of prisoners or slaves and of power and land in few hands makes an oligarchy. Oligarchy. We have attempted to hold these two states of society under one law, but the rude and early state of society does not work well with the latter. Nay, works badly, and has poisoned politics, public morale, and social intercourse in the republic now for many years. So, first thing we can say, without any background knowledge, there's a war going on. Is war going on between two parts of a country, the US, because American civilization, Washington, D.C., all that, between two parts of the US. And with our background knowledge, we could say it's probably a civil war. because that's the only time where there's like two sections of a country. Parts of the US and prob civil war. That's what they're talking about. One state slave south north. And that's all we need for this paragraph, I guess. The Times put this question: why cannot the best civilization be extended over the whole country, since the disorder of the less civilized portion menaces the existence of the country? Is this a secular progress we have described, this evolution of man to the highest powers, only to give him sensibility and not bring to bring duties with it? Is he not to make his knowledge practical, to stand and to withstand? Is not civilization heroic also? Is it not for action? Has it not a will? America is another word for opportunity. Our whole history appears like the last effort of the divine providence on behalf of the human race. And a literal slavish following of precedents, as by justice of the peace, is not for those who at this hour lead the destinies of this people. The evil you contend with has taken alarming proportions, and you still content yourselves with parrying the blows as it aims, but as if enchanted, abstain from striking at the cause. So this paragraph. So basically, some questions are asked. And saying why for all of this. Says US is opportunity, and don't follow precedents. Basically, don't always follow precedents. Always follow precedents. Emancipation is the demand of civilization. That is a principle. Everything else is an intrigue. This is a progressive policy, puts the whole people in healthy, productive, and amiable position, puts every man in the South in just and natural relations with every man in the North, laborer with laborer. So again, this passage, I don't need to fully understand everything. I still don't fully understand everything, but I can tell like what it's saying, like including the previous passage as well. I don't really understand like what some of the questions are really asking. However, I got the general gist of it. So this is like so basically good relations with people in the South and North, good relations between people in the South, and the North, and plus emancipation, which is like freeing of slaves. Shun is what people want. This power of emancipation is that it alters the atomic social constitution of the Southern people. Now their interest is in keeping out white labor. Then when they must pay wages, their interest will be to let it in, to get the best labor. And if they fear their blacks, to invite Irish, German, and American laborers. Thus, while slavery makes and keeps disunion, emancipation removes the whole objection to union. Emancipation at one stroke, it elevates the poor white of the South and identifies his interest with that of the Northern laborer. So says emancipation is good. Emancipation is good, even for Southerners, I guess slavery makes disunion, I guess. makes disunion, and something like that. The end of all political struggle is to establish morality as the basis of all legislation. It is not it is not free institutions. Tis not a republic, tis not a democracy, that is the end. No, but only the means. Morality is the object of the government. We want a state of things in which crime shall not pay. This is the consolation on which we rest in the darkness of the future and the afflictions of today. That the government of the world is moral and does forever destroy what is not. So basically, to stop the political divide, morality should be used. Morality should be used. The government should be moral. The gov should be moral and go against st anything immoral. All right, so what is the general purpose of this passage? To argue in favor of emancipation. That sounds like a good answer. A couple passages ago, it was like emancipation is good and it's moral. To illustrate the evils of slavery, not really, no. The only times it says anything bad about slavery is in this passage right here. And even then, it's just like it promotes disunity. And the rest of the passage is just like talking about emancipation. Therefore, B was not the answer. To highlight the economic problems in the South, again, the only real time that says the South is poor, or I guess whatever, is right here. And the rest of the passage doesn't really ever say the economic problems of the South. Therefore, it can't be C. To articulate a comprehensive theory of morality, I mean, it has the word morality. However, we're not articulating a comprehensive theory. We're just saying why emancipation is good and why it's like moral, why government should be moral. We're not really saying a comprehensive theory of morality. Therefore, A is our answer. Again, if you guys have any questions about why I chose a specific answer, just like tell me, and I can go back and explain it again. So what is Emerson's overall attitude towards politics? Its practices his greatest passion? No. If you go up, it says it's a means to an end. Right here, and right here. Therefore, it can't be A. Can't be A. For B, as I just said, it is a means to an end. That sounds like a really good answer to me. I would probably just immediately choose it to save myself some time. However, I will go through the rest of answer choices just for you guys. It takes on less importance during the war. I mean, nowhere really does it say it takes on less importance, as if you go up, it's like political disjoint, like over the entire, I guess, passage, political disunity is mentioned multiple times and is very important still, even during the war. I guess a specific place where it says that is I guess it says it somewhere. I'm not going to spend too much time going back for the exact evidence. However, nowhere does it say like it's not really important during a war. And it does say political struggle is still happening during the war. It doesn't. So it will ultimately settle the question of slavery. Not really, no. What the, I guess, overall attitude during politics is that it's just like a mean towards the end. It won't really do anything. However, it could lead to emancipation, but it will not ultimately settle it, which basically means due to politics, slavery immediately ends. That's not the best answer, I guess. Therefore, the answer is B. All right, question 3. Which option gives the best evidence to the answer to the previous question? We'll start with 20 to 25. Again, I can immediately tell since I already drew the evidence from it, it's right here. And I guess in a real test, I would just say, because of this, I'll just go search whichever one of the answer choices gets that, which is in this case, D, because that is where I drew my evidence that it is merely a means to an end. But however, we'll just go through each of the answer questions. Answer choices, 20 to 25. Right, so 20 to 25. But the rude early state does not work with the latter, badly works, and has poison politics. Okay, nowhere does it say that politics is a mean to an end here. Politics is a mean to an end. No, it doesn't say that anywhere. Therefore, it can't be 20 to 25. 37 to 39. 37 to 39 is right here. America is another word for the opportunity. Our whole history appears like the last effort of a divine providence on behalf of the human race. That again, that also doesn't mention politics at all. And straight from that, we can immediately cross it out. So it isn't B. 62 to 64. 62 to 64, thus right here. Again, doesn't say politics. No politics stuff in here. Politics. Therefore, that can't be the answer either, because our answer has to prove why politics is a means to an end. And therefore, answer D is our answer, because as I said before, it says right here, it's like the end of all politics is just to do this, and it is not the end. And yeah. Okay, question number 4. Line 6 through 9, the boys ... complete most clearly indicates that. What is 6 through 9? 6 through 9, the boys compete. Okay, so from right here to right here, the boys have no new clothes, no gifts, no journeys. The girls must go without new bonnets. The girls and boys find their education this year less liberal and complete. So bad stuff about war. I guess bad outcomes or stuff caused by war. Stuff caused by war. Caused by war. By war. And now we go back down, check whichever answer matches it best. Interests in childhood entertainment changed greatly. No, it did not. It just said that there's less stuff provided. War led to a focus on bare necessities. That sounds like an okay answer, because there's a focus on bare necessities. The boys didn't get new stuff. The girls didn't get new bonnets, and the education became a lot less good, I guess. Children became less interested in stimulation. Nowhere does it say that. It just said that they don't have as much stuff as before the war. Emancipation was not a priority to the young. Again, nowhere does it say emancipation in that phrase right here. And therefore, that couldn't be the answer. Therefore, C is our answer. I mean, B is our answer. As used in line 12, the word stern most closely means okay, so 12, stern. And what are the answer choices? Playful, terrifying, serious, pointless. Playful, terrifying, serious, pointless. Perfect. Okay. 12. Okay, yes, here. Right. It's here. So it's not going to be terrifying. That doesn't sound right. It's not, I guess it's not pointless, because what it's saying is like, it's like serious or important or stuff like that, portent or stuff like that. I guess an easy way of doing this is to just replace the word stern with each of the words in here. Say playful, terrifying, serious, and pointless, and choose whichever one makes the most sense. And for this one, I guess the tone itself kind of lends it to saying like, no, it can't be playful. Playful is like I guess a positive thing. Pointless just doesn't work in that scenario. And I don't think terrifying would work there either, because it's not terrifying duties. It's just serious duties. And yeah, therefore the answer would be C. Again, if you guys have any questions, just tell me and I can go back to a question to explain it. What is the main purpose of the questions in lines 26 to 36? To rhetorically emphasize the need for action. That sounds like a good answer. The questions again were like, why this, why that? It's like a whole bunch of why questions, which can say, it's like rhetorically asking why do this and why we need to end it right now. So right here, right here, from here to here. And it's just like, why can't we do this type thing? To rhetorically emphasize a need for action. That sounds like an okay answer. To encourage the reader's intellectual capability. That doesn't sound like that would be the answer because it's not encouraging the reader to do anything. So why isn't this working? And this is good. This is not good because it's not encouraging readers' intellectual curiosity. It's just asking some questions about the war and like why do we need to do this? To critique the reasoning given the previous paragraph, I do not think that the person would make a speech where he critiques his own reasoning. So therefore, C wouldn't be the answer. To summarize the thoughts of Emerson's mentor, again, no, the people who were asking that was the Times, which I'm guessing is an article, a news article at that time, like the New York Times and such. So A is our only remaining answer. Emerson frames the philosophical struggle underlying the nation's conflict as one being between geographical needs versus international recognition. Nowhere does it say international recognition anywhere in the passage. Monetary concerns versus political considerations. That could possibly be an answer. Tradition, precedent versus moral necessity. Oh, this is really good because they talked about emancipation and moral stuff. And it's also like, don't follow tradition. So that sounds like a really good answer. The skeptical questioning versus pious obedience. No, that doesn't sound like what they were doing. Now we just go up and I guess we go, I'm pretty sure somewhere in the middle of the passage, like 30s to 50s, where it said traditional precedent versus against moral necessities. So 30s to 40s. It's like somewhere from here to here. Okay, that isn't it. I'm gonna have to go through the entire passage. It's either B or C. Monetary concerns versus political considerations, and traditional precedent versus moral necessities. Now that I think about it, nowhere does it say that there's a monetary concern in there. It just says that poor white farmers can also benefit from emancipation. So nowhere does it say like, I guess like the South or the North is doing this because of monetary concern. Therefore, B wouldn't be the answer either. And C is our only remaining answer then. Which option gives the best evidence for the answer to the previous question? So number 1 is 1 to 6, 1 to 6, right here. And no, that doesn't say tradition versus tradition versus moral necessity. That does not say that. Therefore, the answer can't be 1. Okay, so it's not 1 to 6. 9 to 11. 9 to 11 is right here. Made all the little hooks there that heretofore made the year pleasant were deferred. Again, that doesn't say that doesn't talk about moral necessities versus following tradition. So that can't be the answer either. Therefore, B isn't our answer. C, 37 to 43. And it's traditional precedent record, 37 to 43. is right here. All right, this is like okay, slavish, okay, oh, this is following precedents, and our whole history appears okay, providence on behalf, that's like moral necessity, I guess, and it's like a by justice of the peace, moral necessity stuff again. Okay, that sounds like a good answer. All right, so C looks like a good answer to me. And D, which is 57 to 62. 57 to 62 is right here. And this is just like why it's bad to have slavery. So why slavery bad? Slavery bad. And that doesn't really support our morals versus precedents. Therefore, our answer has to be C, by process of, I guess, elimination, and it being our best answer. So answer is C. Okay, number 9. So as used in line 40, the word following most closely means, okay, line 40, following. Slavish following. Okay, that gives me, okay, literal Slavish following of precedence. So obedience, I guess, like, I mean, yeah, that is like the only real word I can think of. Obedience, or like, just like mindlessly following it without like caring to question, stuff like that. And ensuing, nope, that doesn't sound like obedience and stuff. Succeeding, again, no, that doesn't, I guess that really doesn't fit in that scenario. Resulting, no. And obeying, that sounds like obedience. I mean, another way of doing this question again would be just to replace the answer choices with, well, the word following, line 40, and checking whichever one works the best. However, you could do it the way I did, just like see what words that come in your mind when you look at that. That would also work there. And just checking whichever answer choice matches it the best. Question 10, which option best summarizes the paragraph in lines 56 to 67? So 56 to 67. 56 to 67. So 56, 67, it's right, like right here, I guess. So why slavery bad? Slavery bad. Bad. Why is emancipation good to the South? Emancipation good to South. And why it would improve relations between the North and South, because it relates them. Would it improve relations? Again, this is why I do write these, so I don't have to like read the, I guess, like more difficult words, and I could just read my summaries. However, I do have to erase them because as I scroll down, my writing also goes with it. But you get what I mean with what my summary is saying. So emancipation will lead to the political dominance of European immigrants. Not really, no. It just says that like when wages come around, it's better to have European immigrants. Emancipation will ensue an equitable redistribution of income across the races. Nowhere does it say that in that paragraph. An end to slavery will cause the Southern Constitution to be amended. Nowhere does it talk about the Southern Constitution, first of all. And I don't think it'd be amended either. An end to slavery will realign Southern economic interests in favor of the Union. That sounds like a good answer because of the sentence right here. Basically, this right here, which basically says, if emancipation happens, then the interests of North or South align. All right, therefore D is our only remaining answer. And yeah, Does anyone have any questions before I submit this? Just to, I guess, let's confirm whatever you, or like to explain it better. No? All right, we'll submit. And it seems we got them all right. All right. So I'll give you guys a good 2 minutes to do this question. Again, if you guys have any questions, just raise your hand and I'll answer them. All right, I'll give you guys another 30 seconds to read this problem and then I'll do it myself. All right, I guess I'll do this problem now. So first thing, so it's comparing a fair to a cafe. So first thing we can eliminate is C, because this fare, FARE, refers to like a bus fare or like some stuff you like the money you'd pay for transportation. Now the second thing that we look is then versus then. And then is comparisons equals comparison. Son, while then is like time. Therefore, our answer is B, because both A has the word then in it and D has the word then in it. And therefore, our answer is B. Any questions? Just like raise your hand or whatnot. For the person who said the answer is D in the chat, do you understand why it's B and not D? So D and A is not the same thing because the comma right here, and there's like no comma here. But yeah, the answer is B, and it really shouldn't matter because both these are wrong. All right. I'll give you guys another, I guess, a minute and a half to do this question. All right, I'll give you guys another 30 seconds. All right. So these cats are so cherished by the museum that the officials recently decreed original paintings to be made of 6 of them, and each cat a cat in each a cat is depicted by a. So what I can tell from this is that we're looking for a word that indicates that the officials gave permission for a cat painting to be made. So when you look at the answer choices, forced sounds a bit too strong for gave permission to. uh Decreed also sounds a bit too strong. Decreed is which is like to order or to command, and it's like too harsh for the context. Licensed doesn't really, I guess, like work in this context. Well, commissioned is basically to like hire an artist to do something, therefore B is our answer. Licensed is like when you license someone to complete an act. You don't license an artist to make a painting, you commission an artist to make a painting. I guess if that makes sense. It's just the way the word is usually used. Anyone have any questions why it's not, I guess, D or A or C? No? All right. I'll give you guys a minute and a half to do this question as well. I'll give you guys another 30 seconds to do this problem. What answer choice D means is basically delete this and just end this sentence, like pretend this never existed and put the period right here. Yeah, that's what answer choice D means. All right. So though the concept remained a local trend at first, international repair cafes, all affiliated with the Dutch repair cafe via its website, have since arisen in France, Germany, South Africa, the United States, and other countries on top of that. The original provided a. So first thing, the phrase other countries, like in other countries, just makes this redundant. So answer choice A wouldn't work. In addition, it won't work as well because, again, in other countries basically implies that there's other items on the list, I guess, in this case, which is countries. So in addition, wouldn't work as well. Same with likewise. And therefore, our answer is D, simply because all 3 of these are simply redundant when the phrase "and other countries" is present. Any questions? No? All right. I'll give you guys a minute and a half to do this question. All right, another 30 seconds. All right. So for this question, sunlight down into a building's interior, glass walls and dividers can also be used to replace solid walls as a means through distributing natural light more freely. So I guess the best so basically the correct expression is as a means of. However, it's just an idiom. So the answer choice is B. Like, there's no real reason for it other than the fact that the idiom is as a means of. And I guess this is like a moment where you justify the fact that you have to study idioms and like just like common words in the SAT. Because if you didn't, I guess you could still go through all the answer choices, but it's a lot harder. It's a lot harder to get the right answer than just knowing that the idiom is as a means of versus something else. So answer choice is B. Any questions? No? All right. I'll give you guys a minute and a half to do this one. All right, another 30 seconds. All right. So nutritionists consider Greek yogurt to be a healthy food. It is an excellent source of calcium and protein, and calcium and protein, serves to be a digestive aid, and it contains few calories in its unsweetened, low and non-fat forms. So the words like is, it is, and it like serves basically tell us it's going to be in the present tense, and answer choices B plus answer choice D are not present tense. And it's in like just having answer choice A is wrong because like the it is redundant. It to be a digestive aid, it is redundant. It makes the to be redundant, so therefore A is not the answer, and C is the only remaining answer. Any questions? Why? All right, next question. So we have another reading passage. I'll give you guys a good, I guess, like 7 minutes to read this, and then I'll do it myself. Just raise your hand after you're done. So like if enough people do finish faster, then I can just start doing it. Also, here's a link to this one. Again, if you guys finish, just raise your hand so I know that people are done, so I can start doing the passage. For the person who was asking for the link to last week's slides, I will get that to you. Just 1 second. Last week's slides. Oops, wrong one. Again, if you finish, just raise your hand so I know that you're done and I can start doing the passage. This is the link to last week's slides. For the people who are asking for it. All right. I will start doing this passage in like a little bit. Again, just raise your hand after you finish so I know you're done. I'll give you guys another 2 minutes to do this and then I'll do it myself. All right. So start reading this passage. Oh, you guys can lower your hands for the people who raised them because they finished. All right, so this passage is an excerpt adapted from a speech given in 1917 by American Senator Robert Lafayette. In this speech, Lafayette explains the special importance of free speech during times of war and the relation between free speech and democratic governance. So this is like during World War I, during WW1. Again, could you guys lower your hands if you don't have any questions? That'd be nice. All right, I'll do it myself. Second. And all right. So since the declaration of war, the triumphant war press has pursued these senators and representations who voted against war with malicious falsehood and reckless libellious attacks, going to the extreme limit of charging them with treason against their country. So basically what's happening, I guess, background. I have in my possession numerous affidavits establishing the fact that people are being unlawfully arrested, thrown into jail, held incommunicado for days, only to be eventually discharged without ever having been taken into court because they have committed no crime. Private residences are being invaded. Loyal citizens of undoubted integrity and probity arrested, cross-examined, and most sacred and the most sacred constitutional rights guaranteed to every American citizens are being violated. So I guess stuff that's happening. It appears to be the purpose of those conducting this campaign to throw the country into a state of terror, to coerce public opinion, to stifle criticism, and suppress discussions of the great issues involving this war. So why the events happened in paragraph. I think all men recognize that in times of war, the citizen must surrender some rights for the common good, which he's entitled to enjoy in times of peace. But, sir, the right to control their own government according to constitutional forms is not one of the rights that the citizens of this country are called upon to surrender during the war, in time of war. So I guess says some rights are surrendered, but control of the government is not. Control of gov is not. Rather, in times of war, the citizen must be more alert to the preservation of his right to control his government. He must be most watchful of the encroachment of military upon civil power. He must beware of these precedents in support of arbitrary actions by administrative officials, which, excused on the plea of necessity in wartime, become the fixed rule when necessity has passed and normal conditions are restored. So normal people must be more aware during war, because actions done during war could become permanent. All right. More than all, the citizen and his representative in Congress in times of war must maintain his right of free speech. More than in times of peace, it is necessary that channels for free public discussion of governmental policies shall be open and unclogged. I believe, Mr. President, that I'm not touching upon the most. Oh, that is not okay. That paragraph didn't end there. Upon the most important question in this country today, and that is the right of the citizens of this country and their representatives in Congress to discuss in an orderly way, frankly and publicly, and without fear, from the platform and through the press, every important phase of this war, its causes, the manner in which it should be conducted, and the terms upon which peace should be made. I'm contending, Mr. President, for the great fundamental right of the sovereign people of this country to make their voice heard and have that voice heeded upon the great questions arising out of this war, including not only how the war shall be prosecuted, but the conditions upon which it may be terminated with a due regard to it for the rights and the honor of this nation and the interests of humanity. So basically tells President what he wants. What he wants. Which is basically right to free speech, I guess. Right to free speech about war. Speech about war. Again, so some background historical context that I need from outside of this is that during this time, the government basically put in laws that made it illegal to dissent against the government in like relation to the war itself. And if you were to say don't have war, that's a crime. And I guess that is why the senator is arguing against that and saying, let us talk about the war. Let us discuss like why it's happening and such. Because the government made it illegal at that time to talk about the war. Or at least like when you're not supporting the government in like what the war is and why the war is being waged and such. I'm contending for this right because the exercise of it is necessary to the welfare, to the existence of this government, to the successful conduct of the war, and to a peace which shall be enduring for the best interest of this country. So why he is doing this. Suppose success attends the attempt to stifle all discussion of terms of this war, of the issues of this war, all discussion of the terms upon which it should be concluded, all discussion of this objects and purposes to be accomplished by it, and to concede the demand of the war-mad press and war extremists that they may monopolize right of public utterance upon these questions unchallenged. What think you would be the consequence to this country, and not only during the war, but after the war? So there are consequences. Sequences if right given up, I guess, right given up. It is no answer to say that when this war is over, the citizen may once more resume his rights and feel some security in his liberty in his person. As I've already tried to point out, now is precisely the time where the country needs to counsel of all of its citizens. In time of war, and even more than in time of peace, whether the citizens happen to agree with the ruling administration or not, these precious fundamental personal rights, free speech, free press, and right of assemblage to explicitly and emphatically guaranteed by the Constitution should be made inviolable. So basically, just presses this point more, just presses his point more. All right. So I will do you guys want any like specific questions to be done? Because we don't have too much time left. Any specific questions that you guys want me to do, or should I just go as far as we can, going from 1, 2, 3, 4 and such? So I put it in the chat if you guys want me to do a specific question, or just raise your hand and tell me it. All right, I guess there's no specific question that people want me to do. So the position that Lafayette takes is best described as, okay, so 1 and 2, best described as a lawmaker suggesting a piece of legislation. No, he's arguing against a cause. I mean, he's arguing against the war and saying we should still have rights. So that's not it. An impartial observer arbitrating legal issues. He's not impartial. He's like, just let us free speak. And it's not really, I guess, like he's not arbitrating anything. So it's not B. C, a dissenter arguing for a cause. That looks like a good answer because he's arguing that free speech should be given back to the people versus like all the stuff that's happening without the right of free speech. A pacifist arguing against international conflicts. Nowhere does it say that like he's against the war. You just like give people the right to talk about the war. Therefore, the answer is C. All right. Question 2. In the passage, Lafayette draws a distinction between rights that are appropriately and inappropriately sacrificed during the war. Yes, he's like some rights should be sacrificed, others should not be. That looks like a good answer. Moments when free speech is not necessary. No, he's like free speech is always necessary, even in times of war, more than even in times of peace. So B is not right. Just wars and wars sought for economic interests. No, nor does he talk about the difference between these two. So nope. The interest of the nation and the interest of humanity, it does say that multiple times. However, he doesn't draw a distinction between the two. Therefore, D is not the answer. And A is our remaining answer. All right, question number 3. Which choice provides the best evidence for the answer to the previous question? Again, I'm pretty sure he says this like somewhere in the middle of the passage. I'm gonna guess around like 25 because that's should be there somewhere. Where he's like free speech should never be given up entirely. Oh yeah, right here. So right here, must surrender some rights, but not all of them. So yeah, this section I guess says it. So it should be like 21 to 27. And let's check which answer matches up with it. 21 to 27. As used in line 8, incommunicado means so I guess like incommunicado basically means like you're isolated and such, like even without looking at the answer choices. Incommunicado means you're isolated. However, since you're not really expected to know that. Which line was it saying in line 8? Line 8 incommunicado. So isolated, lated, and so, something like that. And again, you could just replace all of the answer choices with incommunicado and check which one works. But in this case, justified is not isolated. Sequestered is isolated, so that's a good answer. Luxuriously is not isolated really, and available is not really, doesn't really mean isolated. Therefore, our answer is B. All right, I'll do one more, and then we'll just see. I'll just say what you guys need to do for next class, and we'll check our answers as well. So, question 5, lines 32 to 36 suggest that 32 to 36, right? 32 to 36. 32 to 36 is down here. Okay. So 32, 36. It's basically like it can become permanent. Stuff can become permanent. Stuff can become permanent. Become permanent. And then so basically whichever answer choice matches up with that best. Temporary restrictions may become permanent. So our answer choice is D. Did we get them right? All right, we got the ones that we did right. So for next class, just like review quadratics, and we'll be looking at linear and quadratic systems, structures and expressions, isolating quantities, and functions. And yeah, that's it for today. If you guys want me to do a specific question from the passage, just like put it in the chat and I can go back and do it. Otherwise, you guys are free. See you guys next week. If you guys want me to do a specific question from the passage, just like raise your hand or put it in the chat and I can do it. All right, I guess that's it. If no one has any questions, I'm going to end the meeting. See you guys next week, I guess. Bye.